Hello, world of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Redacted, the show where I take a look at records that have a solid foundation, but a spotty execution. And this month, like I said, we're chugging through with some Rush tributes, and my second Rush tribute this month is a Redacted, because I knew I had to put it in this show. If I was putting it in stuff like Arc, I had to put it in Redacted. And while looking at their discography, it was kind of hard to really pick an album, at least initially, that was worth redacting or like that warranted a redacted. Because one of the great things about Rush is that their records are always pretty fucking tight. They always provide a really tight, to the point listening experience. Even on their last record, Clockwork Angels, while it's conceptual, it's still tight. Like, it sits through in a pretty brief runtime, given its length. You know, they don't get too out there. The songs aren't all, you know, arduously grand and sort of beefy at the tendrils. They're not pushing, you know, their belt out to the point of bursting, with the exception of one record. And it's not even their longest record, but it's the one that meanders the most in Rush's discography. But it's weird, because it's the one with my favorite Rush song on it. And I feel like I gotta do a redact on it. I gotta redact it, my guys. It has to be done. It is their 18th and penultimate record in their catalog. The 2007 gem, Snakes and Arrows. You can almost feel the terror when you can almost see the circuits blowing. Now, like I said up at the top, this record is, in hindsight, the most bloated Rush project. It's not their longest. Their last record was longer than this, but because it was a concept and it has more sonically and lyrically going on cohesively, it kind of, its runtime breezes by a little better than Snakes and Arrows. And Snakes and Arrows has some cool thematics going on lyrically. Some imagery ties itself really well together across a couple of tracks, but there's some songs that kind of plod along or just feel not properly placed in the sequencing. And there's 3 instrumental songs on here. And I love Rush. I love Rush's instrumental work. I just got done talking about YYZ last week. I fucking love that song. But even some of the instrumentals I cut, I enjoy. They just kind of bloat the track listing and make it feel like it's kind of busting from its pants. And so when pulling this record together, my goal was to tighten it up, switch some of the pacing around. I keep a decent, some of the chunk of the record in its original order because it works really well. But I just kind of swapped a couple of things around, made the pacing a little smoother, and again, cut some of those instrumental cuts. I made it a tight 10-track listening experience that sits at about 53 minutes, so I cut about 10 minutes from the track listing, and I feel like it's a much better listening experience because of it. And with that in mind, let's go ahead and break down the track listing and talk about why I put what I put it, where I put it, and why. What I did and why I did it. One day I feel I'm on top of the world, and the next is for safety. I leave the darker places on edge, riding and driving and living so close to. What am I supposed to say? Where some are blessed and some are cursed, the golden one I be gone. We could be down and gone, but we hope. What happened to your road? Like the willows in the wind or the cliffs, and we can only bow to the here and now, you know. Now, the other thing that might be sticking in the back of your brain still, because it wasn't that long ago, is what is my favorite Rush song? It's on this record, but what is it? It's the opener, Far Cry. I love this track, and I feel like it acts as a good summarization of some of the album's themes of perseverance amidst challenges that you may put yourself through or challenges that you may face. I love the song. I love its chorus. I love its guitar line. I love its melding of acoustics and electric guitars, which is something the record does a lot really well. And Again, I love the message. I love everything about this song. I think that it's incredibly good. It's a song that I can, since the first time I heard it, it's like a great channeling of classic Rush in a contemporary way. I love the track. I think it starts the record off well, and I actually think the first 3 tracks work really well. I think Far Cry bleeds really well into Armor and Sword. You know, its drum fill kind of picks up where Far Cry left off, and while it doesn't have necessarily a good hook, it solidifies some of those themes that the previous record talked about, you know, but using it in the more of a framework of the challenge that you go through and how it may be rewarding to you at the end of your life, if that makes any sense. And it's interesting that this song exists on an album where a track like Faithless exists, but I'll get to that when I get to that. And then it leads really well into Workin' Them Angels, which again, continuing some of the imagery within Armor and Sword. And it's a great, another just straightforward rock cut with a much catchier chorus than Armor and Sword. I originally had a version where I had these 2 songs flipped, but I feel like Far Cry leads really well into Armor and Sword, and I feel like Workin' Them Angels actually bleeds really well into Spindrift, 2 songs with incredibly catchy hooks as 2 more mid-tempo Rush jams. You know, Armor and Sword really through the larger bowl are all 3 just really more mid-tempo, semi-propulsive jams in their own regards. But Workin' Them Angels and Spindrift are 2 very hook-centric songs that don't have any, you know, sort of kitches with the writing like the larger bowl has, and just act as more great, well-written Rush jams. You know, Workin' Them Angels almost pairing really well, like I said, with Armor and Sword, with its allegorical or metaphorical writing and the use of those metaphors, you know, but spinning it in the realms of being a daredevil. And Spindrift just more talks about more strifes that come, sometimes in the form of relationships. And I think it's got a good sinister edge to it. I really enjoy the track, and again, I feel like it kind of helps keep the pace while shifting the tone, which is what the larger bowl also does, but that track has catchy melodies, but it's more of a fun, interesting written song. And it, again, just sort of keeps the pace while shifting the tone, and that's kind of what this whole leg of the record is. The next track I had in there was We Hold On, which is, it's a little more of a slower jam than the rest of the ones. It was the closer to the record originally. And while I don't think it's a bad closer, it sort of addresses some of the themes that the record tackles on as far as like your struggle and your strife. I feel like it follows Spindrift, tracks like the Spindrift and Workin' Them Angels a little closer, at least having it closer than it would be the closer. It's a great track. It doesn't have the kind of grand theatrics or tone that I would put in a closer, and I wanted to keep the song, so I just shifted it earlier into the track listing. Solid-ass jam, a really good point in the record, and again, it's a point where the energy winds down just a little bit more, because the larger bowl, while sort of pace-wise keeping it, it's more of a stripped-back tune, you know, a lot more acoustically centric. Some electric guitars creep in there in the end, but bleeding that into We Hold On is a point where I wanted the record to continually sort of just wind into a nice comfort zone before the main Monkey Business comes in, which is an instrumental cut, the only instrumental cut that I kept. And like I said, I like Malignant Narcissism and Hope just fine. I think Malignant Narcissism is a little bit of a better jam. I like the bass grooves on there. I like the drums on it. I think that Geddy and Neil really play off of each other incredibly well, and I like the leads that Alex provides in tandem with that. It's got a little bit of funk in there, and I really like the jam. I just feel like it's a little too short, doesn't really go anywhere. Whereas the main Monkey Business at least has like a progression and an evolution to it as the song goes on. It also sonically kind of fits the record a little better. It has textures that mirror a lot of the textures on the record. It just also has a little more of a progression to it. It's not my favorite Rush instrumental. None of them are on this record, but I do like the track. I think that it is a good song. It's a very solid ash Rush jam, and I kind of use it, oddly enough, as sort of like a lead into the second half of the record, because the first half, it's just bop after bop after bop, or grand opener with a lot of good sort of mid-tempo Rush jams that tackle a variety of different subjects, before bleeding into Good News First. You know, it's a track about persevering amidst the darkness. You know, a lot of this record talks about the grind, the struggle, putting yourself on the edge, you know, seeing the trials that can come within a relationship and stuff like that. And I wanted to have this be the point where the record kind of shifts and starts to bring in some more positive vibes. You know, there's other songs that I sort of cut, or one of the songs that I cut, Bravest Faces, is something similar, but I feel like tracks like Far Cry and Good News First sort of act as good cementations of those themes, and I feel like deliver the message a little better. I don't mind Bravest Faces, and I guess it kind of addresses that now. I just scrapped it because I don't think it's the best song on the record proper, and so I cut it. I feel like the tracks that are here do a better job at conveying the message than that track that I mentioned. But Good News First is sort of a good shift in tone lyrically, you know, and I want to use that to sort of lead into the end of the record, you know, because from there you have Faithless, a track that talks about embracing your own lack of faith in a very positive way. And I love the way that record is written. Crash talked about that in his Rush video, and I think the way he described it is perfect. You know, it's one of those songs that can help get you through a period of life like that. You know, and I like Far Cry for the same reason that he likes Faithless, if that makes any sense. And I feel like the writing on Faithless is very, very good. And I feel like, again, sort of acts as a sort of enriching, uplifting point, pivot, enhancement to the pivot point in the record lyrically. You know, it's again about perseverance, not being in the struggle, but transcending it. And I closed it with The Way the Wind Blows for, again, the same reason. It has this sort of tone to it that just looking at the darkness in the world and going with it. You know, we can only grow the way the wind blows. The chorus of the song. It's about embracing the chaos of the world, and it actually has this sort of finality to its tone that I think fits the sonics of a good closer better than We Hold On does, if that makes any sense. You know, it does a good job at addressing a lot of the themes the record has talked about, but wraps it up a lot better than We Hold On did. And I feel like it acts as a good closer in that regard. You know, it's also a great tune. It's a good sort of gigantic, not fast-paced jam to kind of just tie things up in a very nice bow. And I put it there for that reason. You know, and again, it's a similar companion to Faithless and Good News First, and acting as, again, the final piece of that pivot to a brighter direction, looking for a way to find a silver lining amidst the struggles you may have, the frustrations you may have with relationships, or, you know, the time that you put in your own personal struggles. You know, it's that Far Cry, I can get back on. I can get back on. This record, this bookends those ideals that Far Cry cemented in a much better way to me than We Hold On did initially. And yeah, that's why it's here. That's why I closed the record with it. And that is my Redacted. Like I said, I cut Bravest Face because while it is a great tune, great sentiment in it, enhances the themes of the record, if I'm cutting tracks, it's a track that is one that I generally skip if I'm playing through the record. It's one of the songs that I don't like as much as others. You know, is it a bad jam? No. It's a decent mid-tier Rush song in my opinion. If I'm dropping a song for the sake of cohesion and tightness, that would be the one to drop off the record. And I cut the two instrumentals because they're just not as dynamic or interesting as the Monkey Business to me. You know, great instrumental cuts. Again, I like Malignant Narcissism's groove a lot, but I cut it because it's just not as dynamic as Monkey Business. What did you think of this Redacted? What did you think of this Rush tribute? Did you like it? If you did, be sure to give it a like. If you want to see more of my music, gaming, and general nerdery content, be sure to subscribe. Special thanks to my patrons. If you want to join their ranks to get early access to content, exclusive content, or to help drive the community, it's linked in the description. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you again so very much for watching. I've been Vowel Rack. You guys are goodies, lives, and situations. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Rush, for the music. And I will see you another day. Redacted.